Hello everyone, I believe we are live now. So welcome to the project management workshop as part of natHACKS 2024's education sprint. And um, let's just get right into it. So as part of this workshop, I'm going to be starting by introducing myself. So my name is Yash Mauje and I'm the director of web at NeurAlbertaTech, and I'm also the co-president for natHACKS this year. I study at the University of Alberta. I'm pursuing a Bachelor in Sciences degree in Computing Science with a minor in Business. And as part of my Director of Web Tech role at NAT, I manage a team that leads NAT Portal. So, yeah. So I guess that because of this role, I've had to dabble with project management and working with different people who are not always in person, sometimes hybrid and from like different places. So because of this, I'm just going to be sharing my experiences with project management. And yeah, so the agenda for today is why project management? Because project management sounds like one of those terms that is just overused. Like, okay, I'm going to be managing this project, and like you can't really say what that means. It's kind of in the air. So I'm just going to try and put it in more concrete terms today. So as part of doing that, I'm going to be discussing common methods of doing project management, testing some tools that you can use. So after we talk about what project management is, you can actually do it. And especially when you're in a hackathon like natHACKS, when you have a 64-hour period to hack, and you're going to be working on something that's way more complicated than you might have ever worked on, you need to be able to keep track of what's going on and who is working on what. So this is where project management is becomes very important, and I'll also be giving you some tips, some from my own personal experience on how you can do so. So why project management? um, if you look at the number of startups that fail, it's obviously a very major percentage of all startups that are created that fail. And if you go into the statistics of why these fail, as you can see on the slides, uh, a good in fact a major chunk of them just run out of money. Some of them don't have a business plan or model, some lose focus, some don't have the right team, some can't pivot or change tracks as things change in their environment. Some have poor UX or user experience, some ignore their customers, or they don't even know how to listen to customers. And then we have product mess time. So this is like, if you see, these is like half of the entire list of why startups fail, and all of these at the root are just management problems. Because if you ran out of money, that means you haven't managed money well. You haven't planned out how you're going to do expenses and where you're going to spend that money. If you don't have a business model, again, you did not plan how you want to build this business, how you want to build this product. If you don't have the right team, that's usually because you don't know who you want to hire and what kinds of people you want. So again, a planning issue, and the same for the rest. So these issues can be solved by basic project management techniques. So we're going to be talking about that. So now you have a reason to learn project management. So let's learn project management. So at natHACKS, especially if you're in the problem provider division, we have this thing called weekly development reports, or WDR. These are basically just 3 reports that are submitted in 3 weeks. And the goal for doing this is so that teams can deal with these issues that we just discussed before, and they know what they're going to be doing at the 64 hours in the hackathon. So these 3 reports are based on the Stanford bio design model, I believe. We'll be talking about that later. So what this does is, before you get deep into working, you just look at the problem from a third person view. You're looking at what the scope of the problem is, and what are different stakeholders, what are different ways of dealing with these problems, and whether the problem is even worth solving in the first place. So that's the purpose of a weekly development report. You first think about the problem, you think about the solutions, and you think about whether it's worth doing even. And uh, because of the problem provider the problem provider division, where you have a specific problem, the weekly dev reports help you plan out what you want to do. Next are common methods of doing project management. As I was talking about the Stanford biodesign process, so this was a model developed at Stanford where we talk about dealing with problems and building solutions around it. It's a three-pronged approach. First is identify, then invent, and then implement. So you're going to be looking for problems. You're going to identify problems. You're going to invent solutions to those problems, and then you're going to implement it. This can be divided into 5 stages. In the first stage, identify, there are 2 stages. First is finding needs, and then you're going to be screening needs as part of the second part. So this is when you find out there's a problem that exists. Then you're going to think about whether this problem is actually a problem worth solving, because there are some problems that are faced by a very, very small minority, like less than like 0.0001%, or even lesser than that. So then these kind of problems are sometimes not worth solving, because you will be spending more effort and more money, more time in solving those problems than people are already dealing with them. So then in this case, it's better that people just deal with them directly instead of having a smoother way of dealing with them, because sometimes the smoother way is actually more terse. It's much harder to do. And second is inventing a solution. So again, you generate and then you screen, just like the first part. You're going to be generating concepts on how you can deal with this problem, and then you're going to be screening it again, because you need to know if what I'm doing is worth doing. This is a trend that you see in all project management. Then is implementing. So you're going to be developing a strategy on how you want to create this product, how you want to develop the solution, and then you want to build a business around it, because uh, even though we want to avoid making everything a business, it's true that you need money to sustain solutions and products in the market. So it's important that you develop a business around your product so that it can survive in the market and it can even grow and reach the people that you want to reach, and help alleviate the needs of people that you actually want to help. So that's about the Stanford biodesign process. Next is agile method. So, as the name suggests, companies usually, when they're dealing with problems, they want to be agile. So there are many problems that you deal with every day, and then you want to be able to deal with them fast. Sometimes when you're solving a problem, the problems just change. Like for example, if we talk about smartphones, if you go like 20 years ago, there was a BlackBerry, which was called a smartphone, and it had like a keypad, and then we just got rid of it with the iPhone, which had a touchscreen. So then if during the transition period, if you were working on building a smartphone, and then you still focused on creating the best keypad that's possible ever, and then on the other hand, Apple has launched a smartphone with a touchscreen, then you have just wasted time focusing on building the best keypad. Instead, if you are pivoted and just switched to building a touchscreen, you would have survived that trend, that switch. So all of that is what the agile method focuses on. So as the name suggests, again, you want to be fast, you want to be flexible, you want to be able to switch between things, and that's used by many top companies, including Google, Microsoft, Apple. Most software development companies, in some or the other way, use a version of Agile. Um, so how this works is, usually you plan long-term goals. You want to identify, okay, we are here right now. This is the problem we want to solve, and this is how we are going to get there. Then you want to divide it into small tasks, because if you're going to look at the big problem, it's going to look like a very big task. It's going to look like a uphill battle, and we don't want to do that. So we switch it into smaller tasks, and then you attack these tasks one by one. The solutions are again in a piecewise manner, because the problems are in pieces now. And then as you implement it, you want to test it as well, because sometimes you build a solution and you don't know that it's not working until the product has been launched, and then now you have failed, because you could have prevented this by just testing while building, and then you did not, and now the customers can actually use the product, and you're not solving the problem that you wanted to. So you want to test as much as you can, and after you have launched the product, you want to see if the product is actually doing what you want it to do. So to measure success of a product, you could see how many units are being sold, or if you're reaching the people you want to reach, and things like that. So you want to be measuring performance. So in software terms, that could be maybe seeing if your website loads fast enough, or maybe it's being SEO probably, so it's ranking well on Google, for example. These are some KPIs or key performance indicators you want to look for. And there are two parts of the agile method that I would like to highlight today, especially since you're focusing on a hackathon. And these two things are sprints and scrums. So, as I was talking about earlier, you divide the big problem into smaller chunks and you deal with these chunks through something called sprints. So, you could have the sprints to be as long as you want. It could be like a day, a week. You don't want it to be like a year-long sprint or something. You still want to deal on the piece-wise problem. And then you have scrums, which are basically just meetings. So an example of how these two would work together is, for example, because again, we are talking about natHACKS. At natHACKS, on the first day, let's say you have decided the problem and you have decided what you're going to do, how you're going to solve that problem, and what product you're going to build. Then you're going to divide it into chunks. So let's say I want to build a website. So there'll be someone who is dealing with the database side of it, or there is someone who is dealing with the front end side of thing, and someone with the back end thing. So there are three pieces to this problem right now, and you have 64 hours. So let's say the first person just starts working on the database, the other person is working on the front end, and now you as a third person have no clue of what's going on, because you can see your teammates working in front of you, but you don't know what progress they have made and how far you are still from solving the problem. So that's where sprints and scrums come in. So you decide at the start of the day that, okay, I'm going to create the database and I'm going to link it to the website. Let's say that's our task for today. And so part of it is the database guy is going to deal with creating the database, and the person working on the back end is going to deal with communicating with the database and the front end. So you're going to have a meeting at the start. Let's say you discuss what you're going to do and how the work is split. You start working on it, and then on the next day in the morning, you can discuss your progress. This way, you still have track of what's going on and who's doing what, and you can move forward in a more systematic approach, and then you won't reach that point where you're in like an hour before judging and you have no clue how you're going to complete your project and if it's working or not. So you want to avoid all of these problems by being more systematic about things. So yeah, so you follow sprints and scrums. Then we have continuous testing. If you take one thing away from this, please test, because many times when you're just coding for hours and hours on end, you have no clue that things are working or not, especially if your code depends on someone else's code to work. So if you don't have tests to figure out what's going on, you won't realize that it's broken until the last minute. And especially if this is right in front of the judges, or if it's a business and it's right in front of the customers after launch, it's not going to be a beautiful situation to be in. So test while you're building. So then this way you have track of what's going on, if things are working or not, and then you can deal with the problems right as they appear. Then we have useful tools. So again, project management was kind of up in the air until now, but now you still want to get the benefits of this, and you can do this through different tools. The first being the Gantt chart. So this is basically just a table with dates and then like a division of tasks, and then you just allot tasks to people, and then you can see what's going on and keep track of things. I personally have not used this, but if this is up your alley, then yeah, go for it. Then there are Kanban boards, and I've used this a bit. Um, and this, it's basically like it's kind of like a board. You could imagine it like a board on the wall in your office, and then you just have like we have four in this case. So you have a backlog, a doing, a review, and a done section. So as you build tasks and subtasks, you just put them in the backlog section. Then now, as you have allotted them to teams, and now it's time to work on those tasks, you just pick up the task and put it into the doing section. Once you're doing it and now it's done, you need to review the code, or maybe you want to check if it's working. You just pick it up again, put it in review. And once you've done that and you know for a fact that okay, this task is completed, it works, I've tested it, it's fine to go into the product, you pick it up and you put it into the done section. And this way you can keep track of what's going on, which tasks are done and which tasks are pending. And it's also easier for other people to see, okay, this person is working on this and now I can work on this thing because it was blocked by something else. So this is a good way of tracking all of that. Then we have stand-up meetings, and as the name suggests, in these meetings you just stand up and talk. It's not compulsory, But then the point of having it called stand-up meetings is when you're standing, you don't want the meeting to get stretched for long enough, for too long. Because if it's like an hour meeting and all of you are standing, it's not going to be a fun situation to be in. So you just have a meeting, everyone talks for like 30 seconds or a minute each, and then you just get the meeting done with. This way, everyone knows what's going on, and you're still keeping track of things, and but you're also not wasting time procrastinating through a meeting, and you can focus your time better on things that you want to actually build. And now I have some software recommendations for you. So at NeurAlbertaTech, we personally use Jira a lot, and Jira is fun once you get the hang of it. You can have Kanban boards inside of Jira, and then you have user stories and tickets and tasks and all of that. It also has good integrations with GitHub. So if you want to use pull requests and stuff, you can track all of that, link the pull requests to tickets and things like that. So it's very good. Some people use Monday.com. I haven't used it personally. Then there's Asana, and I don't know if you have seen the ad on YouTube, but it's pretty famous between companies. Again, I've not used it on my own. Then there's Notion, and Notion is like an everything software, if you will. You could use it for project management. Students use it to keep track of assignments, and because this is a hackathon and you don't want to spend too much time on like building tasks and like setting up these softwares, instead I would recommend using Notion. You could also use like a Google Sheet if you want, but a Notion doc is also a good way to go about this. But maybe once you're in a company and you're working, or if this hackathon project ends up being a startup, you could use something like Jira or Asana to make things easier for you. Now, some quick tips. Document everything. So when you're working on things and then now you're passing tasks to other people, they need to know what's going on. Especially if you have set up a project and then someone has never worked with that project in the previous time, or they have never worked with that technology before. Having a documentation is easy for them to get started with setup and initializing the project. And apart from that, you could also document meetings. So whenever you have these stand-up meetings, always have one person who is documenting what's going on. Now you don't need to write tons of paragraphs or something, just like a couple of lines, just like 2 or 3 lines, and that's enough to see what's going on. And this way, if someone misses a meeting, they can read the notes and they know what's going on. So document everything. This could be in the code, this could be in meetings, just in general, document. Then switch roles. So don't always have one person writing notes, for example, in a meeting. And I don't know if my video is on anymore. I think the camera crashed. Um, so keep switching roles. This way, yeah, it's not boring to do tasks, and also there are people who are paying attention. If it's always just one person who is being relied upon to take notes during a meeting, uh, the other people might just not focus in the meeting. So if you keep switching roles, that way people have a reason to listen in meetings and like contribute. So keep switching roles, it keeps things fun. Then finally, do not leave the business side of things to the end. Now this is a hackathon, and this might not be the best place to implement it, but if you want to make this a serious business, it's best to also discuss the business side of things. So this could be documenting, this could be preparing a pitch for when you're judging, it could be creating agreements, IP agreements, especially if you're in a problem provider division and you're working with a problem provider. It's best to have an IP agreement, so then the problem provider and the team knows what's going on, and who owns what part of the project. Also, finally, it's best to discuss commercialization, especially if you want to make this a startup. Um, this way, you know what you're walking into. And yeah, this also makes judging easier for you. And if you're looking at this from a non-hackathon perspective, if you're just building a project and now you want to make it into a business, it's always good to also look at the business side of things from the start. This way you have track of what's going on. And with that, I think we have reached the end of this presentation. So if you have any questions, you can just email us at contact at NeurAlbertaTech. You can join our Discord at NeurAlberta.tech/Discord. And yeah, I look forward to seeing all of you at natHACKS.